Hello, and welcome to my channel. It's going to be a bit different today because I'm going to talk to you about why I'm doing this project and what I've learned from it. I'm testing a new microphone, but I just realised the cable is incredibly short, so I'm going to have to do something about that, but I shall stay as far from the camera as I can get. Anyway, so yeah, got a few things to talk about on this. The genesis of this project was really, obviously it came out of the fact that we're all in isolation and we have, too much of us have lots of time in our hands. And I thought it would be fun to do something that was like a daily challenge that would also kind of flex the creative muscles and maybe help a little bit with self-promotion because, you know, like a lot of you out there, as a creative person, I'm very good at coming up with ideas and seeing creative projects through to completion, but I'm not very good at monetizing my skills. I'm not very good at sort of, you know, figuring out how to get someone to pay for this stuff. So I thought, well, I'll just put a lot of ideas out there, just keep throwing ideas out there to demonstrate that I have boundless ideas, and that should be monetizable in some way. So that's partly what this channel's about, but really more it's because it's fun and because I'm becoming a better writer through doing it. You know, it's like any muscle. If you exercise it regularly, you will get stronger, you'll get better. And it's because of the particular nature of this challenge, it's making me write in a whole bunch of different genres, a whole range of characters I would never have thought of writing from the perspective of, and necessarily being brief, which is, you know, a key thing for all writers. I'll just reiterate what the rules are and probably put them up on screen. All stories are based on 5 random words. I am not allowed to veto the random words that are given to me by the online random word generator. And the third rule is that the story should be 1,000 words long. I don't mean roughly 1,000 words, I mean exactly 1,000 words. I've only failed in that one time, and the only reason I let it run longer was because it was a really nice little piece, and I thought I'm losing good stuff here if I take any more out. But I should hopefully not go back to that, because it does come down to how you structure the story, how long it's going to end up, and how much of a story you decide to tell. Because obviously every story, there's a whole world before and after the events that you're narrating. So it's choosing your get in and get out moment that is key. Another thing which is, I think, hugely important for this project, and in fact for a lot of writing, is to trust your instinct. I don't overthink the connections that I'm making between these words. Something pops into mind, you know, I have an intuition that there will be an interesting story about a particular character, or that a particular meeting of characters will produce something interesting, or that a particular setting is redolent of intrigue. And then I will go with that and just see where it takes me. And I haven't scrapped any stories yet. You probably wish I had, but no, the whole point is not to be precious about it. I write the story, I record the story, I put it out there. And if people like it, they like it, and if they don't, there'll be another one along tomorrow. What I'm finding is that it's easier to start with the most unusual word. For example, there's a story I wrote, the one where I'm in the guise of the Prime Minister. It's called The Syndrome. And one of the 5 words I was given was automatons, which is a very unusual word. Automatically made me think of the Autons in Doctor Who, and machines, obviously, and people becoming machines, and then that made me think of body snatchers, and sort of, you know, that word was so unusual and it stuck out so much that everything was built around it. And also I wanted some of the stories to be very directly linked to the situation we're in now with the coronavirus. So I made up a story about a virus that is even more deadly, in that it's transmitted through the eyes. So if I stare at you long enough, you will get it. And then the idea of there being some sort of an alien invader that speaks in tongues. Anyway, it made sense at the time. The next important thing is to allow connections to form just allow an image to come. Just look at the words, think about how they're connected. Some of them will automatically suggest a connection. For example, the story I wrote, what was it called again? The Equation for Happiness. There were 2 words in those 5, bell and chant, that automatically said monks to me. You know, tolling of bells, prayers, chanting. That made the rest of the story kind of write itself at that point. I thought, well, I need an interesting monk, someone that I, as an atheist, can get in touch with. So I thought, well, how about somebody who, you know, has a moment of doubt and regret, just a moment where he wishes that life could have presented other possibilities, and perhaps the metaphor of the 2 birds fighting over the sunflower seed was somehow linked to that. Well, I also had to fit the word finch in, so there you go. Performance, that I'm learning a hell of a lot about performance. I have done some acting lessons in the dim and distant past, but not recently. My dad pointed out very early on that I was speaking far too fast. I wasn't allowing the senses to breathe. I wasn't allowing the audience to piece those images together, because when you're listening to spoken word, you need a bit longer to process the images than if you're reading. And I hadn't got that at first. Voices, that's an interesting one, because if you're not a professional actor, doing the different voices, you know, enacting the dialogue is a challenge. I'm maybe getting better at it, but I don't push myself to the extent of trying to do accents, you know, or sound like a teenage girl when I'm not. I'm not an actor, and I wouldn't try and tread on anyone's shoes by attempting to do that. So I just give a flavour of it, you know, a flavour of the attitude or the emotion behind the dialogue. Energy, the energy level has to be up. So even if the story is very downbeat, the images in that story have to be conveyed with is vividity a word? Vividness, yeah. And to do that, you need your energy level has to be up, so the audience is still with you and isn't being lulled into a stupor. That's a challenge sometimes. And finally, clarity. You know, diction. Having to stress the appropriate words and pronounce everything correctly, or in a way that everyone will understand. That involves drinking sips of water, and I haven't got any here today, which is bad. And it involves just having to cut now and again. So you will see these little moments in the films where there's a tiny little dissolve where I've stumbled or made an error, so I've just cut that bit out and said it again. I think that's okay in this context. So those are the little notes on performance that I found helpful. I have noticed some trends forming in the kinds of story that fit this experiment. Twists and twist endings always work well in a short story, and particularly in a very short story, oddly enough. In this time, of utter global crisis, I think a note of optimism is helpful. So even the darkest stories should have something there that offers hope. So I hope I've achieved that. I'm finding chance meetings between characters who would otherwise seem to have nothing in common is very helpful. Like the beekeeper and the young chatty novelist, crime writer. To have those two characters who would not, one would certainly avoid the other, and to sort of force them together provided something interesting, I thought. Vignettes, so slices of life, kind of Raymond Carver-esque moments within a life. Very hard to do, but it does work well in a 1,000-word context if you can pull it off. I think it's a big challenge to do in a story that, these stories take me about 2 hours to write and about another 30 minutes to edit and then about half an hour to upload. I don't think I'd be writing Raymond Carver quality stories with that kind of schedule. But it's fun to aim at occasionally. And that does sort of lead on to my next point, which is about being brave. I think if you're not writing these stories to be your life's work and testament, if you're doing something like this as a way of getting the creative juices flowing, then be brave. Just, challenge the medium, try different things. That's why I did one that was a monologue to camera. And I have other ideas for ones that will probably drive me mad because they're so complicated and bizarre. But anyway, I intend to not allow myself to be, restrained by common sense, I'll put it that way, which can get in the way of creativity sometimes. What I find doesn't work so well is disguising a first chapter of a novel as a short story. So loads of backstory, giving huge detailed character backgrounds as if you're going to later on take that character on a journey. When you only have 1,000 words, it's about 4 pages of text to read. It's going to take 7 or 8 minutes maximum. You're not going to get a literary masterwork with great detail in that time, really. You just aren't. You shouldn't leave the audience feeling that it wants to know more in this context. You're not going to give them any more unless you're planning to work it into a novel. Shoehorning of words. So I cheated, I don't think I cheated, but I was a bit stuck with the word anteater on the story about the teenage girl discovering the joys of mathematics. Because I thought, how the hell am I going to get an anteater into a story about maths and about triangles? And then just popped into my head that I remember in exams at school sometimes kids would have like little mascots on their desk for good luck, and I thought this particular girl would have an anteater because the word anteater came up. So sometimes it works. Sometimes if you're doing that too often, if you're shoehorning words in, having somebody pick up a book and read a sentence that has all 5 of your words in it, it's not allowed. It's cheating. Stop it. One of the main reasons I'm doing this is, of course, for the fun of it. It's a good way to communicate ideas. It's possibly a good way to road test some things, see whether they may be worthy of further exploration. And what I'm really enjoying partly is the research. The internet is a fantastic thing, and obviously I couldn't have really done this project very well even 15 years ago, because there would have been no Wikipedia, no endless resource of information. I've learned about things like Ecuadorian volcanoes, jaguars in the jungle, and the incredible complexity of bee society. And just the a bee is like a little incredibly detailed factory for producing several incredibly useful substances, which we've managed to completely exploit. Beekeeping is a very fascinating subject, believe me. So what am I going to use this for? What is it for? Some of these stories, I guess, could be calling cards. I might be able to actually send them to an agent, who knows, as an alternative to just endlessly sending off the first 3 chapters of novels they don't want to read. There might be material for expansion. I have noticed a few of the perhaps more genre-orientated stories contain ideas that I'd like to explore more. That would be Symbiosis, the one about, I've had that idea before, which is the idea of there being wizards or magicians or whatever you want to call them, but they can only cast spells if they have someone else to take the pain of it. It's kind of a giant metaphor or something for patriarchal capitalist society, maybe. But really it's a fun story about wizards and masochists. Anyway, so that might be worth exploring. Welcome to Hereafter. I quite enjoyed the sort of mood of that one, although it just started off as a kind of bog standard dystopia, or a bog standard sort of post-apocalyptic story, really. Import-export, the Edinburgh set futuristic people smuggling, off-planet people smuggling enterprise. That could definitely be something I could look at further. And Black Cubes, of course, which already has its own music. Well, if somebody wants to write a better version of the Black Cube song, please do. And if not actual worked out narratives that could be explored in other books or things, there are characters popping up that are fascinating. In the last couple of stories I've had Mad Aunt Bessie and Leroy Bixler, both of whom I kind of want to see again somehow. whether it's in a short story or a novel or a TV pilot or something, they'll still be there floating around in my head, waiting to come back and tell me what they would like to do. So I have some future plans for the channel. I'd really like to invite some guest writers and readers. If you write, you also have to read it. That's one of the rules. I would do that by invitation because, I want to maintain some quality. And I know some really good writers, so that won't be a problem. I'd also like to do a few more of these sort of pieces about the craft of writing and any other lessons I learn along the way. And I might be able to swing it to do an extract or two from my forthcoming book if my agent and publisher allow. That might be fun. If you would like to help in this enterprise, there are 4 ways to do so, very simply. Liking a video. Sharing it is especially useful on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. Make a comment. Just tell me which ones you like, which ones you didn't like so much, because I really don't know. I can kind of tell by the amount of minutes and the statistics that YouTube provide, but I'd rather hear it from you. What do you like? What don't you like? And finally, the key thing, subscriptions. I have an enormous subscriber base of 9 people, and I'm sure we can do better than that. You switch off the notifications, you won't hear anything, but you'll still be a subscriber. Or leave them on. So yeah, this has just been my little summary of some of the thoughts I've been having about this whole crazy project, and I will keep doing it because I enjoy it. And I thank you for watching, and I'll see you for tomorrow's story. Goodbye.